What's up, YouTube? So I have a '09 Duke 690 and I'm doing the fork seals on it. They're fairly simple forks. I got all the parts right here. I'm just gonna walk you through what you do with this particular fork. It's a WP fork. They come with the SKF seals in them, so if you buy OEM you get SKFs, which is really good. So as far as I know right now, it's the best fork you can buy. I have a spacer in mine. Somebody did, the previous owner. This is the largest spacer I've ever seen in a spring ever, but it was in there. The fork assembly is pretty simple. You got your lower tube and your upper tube, and the inner valving and stuff in an assembly. Since I'm doing seals, I won't have to take this thing apart, and that is a really good thing. There is no lower valve. There's just a little bit of holes in the bottom of it for letting fluid out. If I pump it right now, you can kind of hear it squirting a little bit of fluid out. I actually put some contact cleaner in there to get it to clean out a little bit better. So the tricks of getting this thing apart are once you pull this cap, so this cap right here, pretty simple. You count your clicks in and then write that down. Mine were set at 12 if you want to go back to where it is stock, or where you have it set. And then you go back out as far as you can go. That sets the rebound as low as possible. You do the same thing on the bottom of the tube. On the Duke 3, the piece is actually facing out like this. A lot of them are on the bottom down here, but this one's facing out. So you just take this little screw in the center all the way in, count your clicks, then all the way back out for the lowest rebound. Your clicks in is the number you want to remember. You want to reset it there for when you put it back together. You'll take it all the way in and then count back out to where you were. Once you have those settings, you pull the tube up. It's easiest if you leave this on the bike, the whole assembly on the bike, and then you put a nut on a wrench on this nut right here and crack it open. Motion Pro makes a socket that leaves a gap for this thing, and you can do that in a soft jaw vise, which I don't have. So I actually was able to just use a crescent wrench, which was a little dangerous, but I didn't have the exact, I think it's like a 23 millimeter or something, 24 maybe. The 7/8 wrench is really close, but not quite. So I had to use a crescent wrench, but that worked and cracked it loose. If they've been on forever, they may be harder than a crescent wrench, and you might want to get the right size wrench. Inside here, when you do get this off, you'll thread it all the way off. You actually have to. It'll get to the end, and it'll feel like it's stuck. Keep going. It pops right off. Once you get past that, this comes off out. This comes out of the center of this assembly, down in that tube right there, actually. Once you get that up and out, you're going to drop the outer tube down, and what it'll show is this will be hidden. It'll be behind if you have a spacer, it'll be hidden. If not, it'll be underneath the end of the spring, kind of like right where my finger's at on the spring, and you'll have to push the spring down and then push a 22 or a 7/8 wrench works. It's pretty tight, but it works. You can actually do yourself a favor and take your wrench and shave a little bit off with a grinder to make it a little bit narrower, but this is a standard size wrench, and it was able to work. Wasn't able to get it all the way in, but I was able to get it back far enough that I felt safe undoing it, because I know it's only 12 to 15 foot-pounds that these things are under. So you put that on that fork right there. Once you pull this spring back, it springs like that, right? It's covering it up. You pull it down, stick your wrench in, and the spring will actually hold your wrench kind of in there. And then you put a wrench on top of this, and you crack it loose from there. Once you do that, the assembly comes apart. This comes out. These actually pop out, these little plastic spacers, so be careful you don't lose those. Mine was actually set up like this. Has two plastic spacers up in here. Then it had this gigantic, like 3.5, 4-inch spacer, and then it had that plastic one there underneath it. Once you take all those spacers off, and I like to lay them in order. So I'm kind of going like top, next, all the way down, and I made a new row. You'll have everything apart. You can then pull this out. At that point, that's when I tip the whole assembly over into a drain pan like this, drain it out, get all your fluid out, and then once you go to the bottom, down here, there's a hole right here just big enough for your 13 millimeter to fit up in there like so. And once you get the 13 millimeter up in there, you'll be able to pull out the bolt. It looks like a hydraulic line bolt. It has a little brass washer in there to seal, and then it's got holes in the center of it to keep fluid going in through there and down to the ports that are at the bottom. So pull that bad boy out. Once you pull that, fluid will come out. That's why you drain it before you do that. And then you'll have your assembly. Just take these off slowly. There's a little crack in the top bearing. This one, you just kind of stick a screwdriver in that groove and twist a little bit, and it opens it up a little bit like that, and then it slides up off the top of this tube right here. And that's the groove that sits in. And then next you'll have this bushing on there, a flat washer, and then your seals. The seals get kind of tricky. Your dust seal comes right off, but then this one, this holds your actual oil seal in, and mine is actually rusted, believe it or not. There was some water trapped under the dust seal, but outside of the oil seal, so it's actually rusted. So I'm kind of sitting here with a disassembled fork thinking, well, I might as well do a video because I've got to wait on parts anyway. So those parts are on their way. This is actually the dust seal. It's got the one with the spring on it. So that one will come out easily. You can kind of stick a screwdriver down in the groove here, in between here and the mating surface right here, and it pops it loose for you. It makes it a little bit easier. And then you kind of slide hammer the two parts apart. Make sure all of your bushings are out of the way on your silver tube, your inner tube. And that is how you disassemble. You reassemble in reverse, but make sure you're spraying everything down with contact cleaner, cleaning it up really nice before you put it back together. Fill to factory specs how much fluid you should have in these. Make sure your weight doesn't change too much in the oil, because that can mess up how the forks work. And just make sure you know which order you're putting it back together in. If you don't know, or if you need to order parts, I always like to use OEM parts diagrams. They help me figure out what's what, where the parts go back in order, which way. It can get very confusing with all these little parts. And have a bunch of rags set up, because you're going to need them. No matter what you do, the hydraulic fluid in these things gets everywhere. So hope that helps you guys with your KTM Duke 690s. This is a Duke 3, so 09 to 12, I think, is the years for this. There's probably a few other bikes that have this on it, these types of forks on it. A lot of them are a little bit different, though, because the WPs are on a lot of the KTM dirt forks. But this is the one for the street bikes, so I hope that helps. See you guys.